Welcome and thanks for joining our webinar, The New World of Analytics and Intelligence. Empower your organization with data at speed. I'm Kelly and I'm responsible for the marketing activities here at BitBang, and I'll be here to host the webinar. Joining us today is Giovanni Lorenzoni, CEO at BitBang, and Joe Mcniewicz, Head of Partners, EMEA at Domo. Hi to both. So I'll just go over a few housekeeping matters before I hand over to Giovanni. We will try to keep within 40 minutes for the presentation, and we will follow this with a question and answer session. Please submit your questions during the webinar and we'll respond to these at the end. Don't forget to take a look at the various documents we have provided as additional resources for this webinar in the attachment section. You'll be able to view a recording of this session on demand, so you can view it again at any time or share with your colleagues who can't make the live session today. And finally, if you have any feedback, we would of course love to hear from you. So for a quick overview, we will cover what we mean by the new world. We'll explain the impacts on analytics and intelligence of today, and how and why it's affecting businesses now more than ever. Joe will then explain what Domo is and how it can help you overcome these challenges within a matter of days. We know that businesses have to react now, so he'll show you how some clients have managed to get up and running with just a few days and what it meant for them. We'll finish with a quick demo before closing the presentation and start the question and answer session to answer any questions you have. So a little overview about BitBang, our mission: accelerating business transformation through data strategy and data execution practices. And BitBang empowers data-driven decision-making at scale. So I'll now pass you straight over to Giovanni to start with the presentation. Thanks, Giovanni.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you all for being here. I'm Giovanni Lorenzoni, CEO of BitBang, and I'm Head of Analytics and Intelligence Practice. I'm showing my camera, but now let's go to the presentation. Okay, so what we mean by the new world? We are all connected to each other. Not only we are connected biologically or chemically, but we live in a connected world, the so-called digital age. And digital allows you to have real-time engagement with people and equipment. The information you can gather from this real-time connection allow you to automate and streamline many decision-making processes. And all of the business are trying to leverage on this interconnected world. Now, if you put analytics and intelligence layer on top of that interconnected data fusion world, you can eventually create an adaptive model or even a different business model and overcome your competitors. However, seems like too many organizations underestimate the implication and effects of the digital age, of the digital economy, which leads them to fail to size up the threat that digital poses to their businesses. Now, one of the most important rules to keep in mind in such framework is speed. And as you all know, more recently, the world has suddenly found itself in an uncertain times. Now more than ever, it is critical to run our business with fast access to facts. So to succeed in the digital age, companies need to significantly raise their metabolic rate. You are required to design and apply a strategy at the speed of digital. In this day and age, again, all of the companies would eventually need to find a direct path to the customer and will need real-time analytics to stay on the edge of their businesses. Now, In the digital age, not only apparently you do have to move faster, but move first. And now, being a first mover or extremely fast follower is starting to have a significant economic benefits. Part of the reason is the rate at which organization can learn with digital and data at their disposal. Now, if we build a system or a speed system, it always encounters some opponents. And Newton's third law of motion makes a compelling case. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which means that an athlete's speed is the sum of their applied force and the effect of the opposing force upon them. In the case of a runner's pace, which is the example we're taking for now, that contrasting agent is aerodynamic drag, the force that acts on any moving solid body in the direction of the fluid free stream flow. If we take the organization back to our story, few organizations are able today to oppose to some of these contrasting agents, such as politics, inability to change, or other barriers. Where high performance companies excel is in effectively navigating these change barriers in order to adapt their organization for analytics. So, said differently, our high performance embrace the change journey. Now back to the concept of speed. Let's talk a little about the law of speed. Even recently, Jeff Bezos emphasized how speed matters in business and focused on the importance of high velocity decision making. Bezos suggested in a letter to the Amazon shareholders that most decisions should probably be made with somewhere around 70% of the information you wish to add. If you wait for 90%, in most cases, you're probably being slow. So nobody wants to make bad decisions, that's for sure. However, constantly waiting for near perfect information can lead to atrophy and missed opportunities. So for Bezos and for many other bright managers, it is critical that companies are good at rapidly recognizing and correcting bad decisions. So if you are good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure. Now, if we want to apply these concepts on technology and BI, focusing on real-time capabilities of such technologies, let me show you this graph. This graphic shows the percentage of respondents, indicating that each factor listed in the graph is very important in creating a foundation for real-time customer analytics and customer interaction, followed by the percentage who say that the organization is successful in achieving it. So that was a study from the Harvard Business Review with much more insights. But what did the survey respondent tell to the research? They were clear on the most important factors needed to create a foundation for real-time customer interaction. And they included the ability to apply insight at the right time, accessible and usable data, the ability to predict, optimize, and forecast, using trusted algorithms, and organizational support for experimentation, of course. Now, if you look at the graphic, the survey reveals sizable gaps between the importance of these key capabilities and how successful companies have been in achieving them. So we see probably a mandate from the top down to be able to perform real-time analytics to improve customer experience. Everyone apparently believes in the need for it, but very few organizations have the technology, the people, the processes in place to execute on the strategy. Even the companies such as department store who lack direct relationship with their end users, or CPGs, maybe more clearly, so consumer goods manufacturers, they are under pressure to better understand and respond to customer behaviors and needs. So let me keep apart the processes and the people. I know that these are very important factors to achieve excellence in analytics and intelligence, but let me focus on the technology for now for this conversation. So let's have a look at what the conditions, the climate, the new world has impacted analytics and intelligence. So we all know these are the key factors to succeed in the digital age and in data and analytics projects. I just mentioned some of them, but the list is probably much longer. If we take a look at what are the leading challenges that organizations are facing from their existing data analytics solution, the list is pretty much comprehensive and includes solutions that are not flexible enough to meet my needs, slow query speeds, which is again a theme about speed, complicated interface, complexity in usage. Let's remember that most of the people who are now required to use BI tools are employees without any background, strong background in business intelligence. Requires too much coding, they're too expensive, they can't scale, they need to be instrumented. Now the idea is every time we find a challenge, we have to face and to solve it. Keeping in mind the previous challenges, what are the kind of design principle that we should keep in mind to build and create solutions that do cope with the challenge and do solve those challenges? A few of them, something that brings in speed of service, unlimited scale, leveraging on the cloud, widely used, so easy to use across all of the employees, self-service, managed by both of the entities and the teams, IT and business intelligence, but let me say business teams. Monitoring continuously the events and the moments we want to collect and report on, even those events or moments that were unanticipated, and keeping an eye and having the capability of leveraging on all of data types, sources, and systems without any limitation. So from a BI perspective, these are the capabilities needed you would ask to your modern and augmented intelligence solution. We believe Domo is a platform able to deliver the promise, giving you the speed, the scale, and the impact with unmatched time to value. Now, back to the keywords we were talking about. Let me expand our discussion, not just on the front end, but on the data system and the overall data architecture. Leaders who are guiding their organization on a journey toward the insight-driven enterprise today really struggle to keep up with the speed of technology innovation. The success in analytics in the last decade has fueled hunger for more. Especially the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in data and analytics platform is considered a game changer. Organization constrained by limitation of time, cost, and resources will see a breakthrough with new capabilities across the entire information supply chain. Now, we're saying that yesterday data architecture can't meet today's need for speed, flexibility, and innovation. And the key to a successful upgrade and significant potential rewards is agility. In terms of data architecture, what we need to consider overall, how do we architect a data ecosystem shape? McKinsey & Company very recently has published a paper observing 6 foundational shifts companies are making to their data architecture blueprints that enable more rapid delivery of new capabilities and vastly simplify existing architectural approach. These capabilities touch nearly all data activities, including acquisition, processing, storage, analysis, and exposure. So let me show you, hopefully quickly, what are these key changes organizations do need to consider. The first one is moving from on-premise to cloud-based data platforms. Cloud is probably the most disruptive driver of a radically new data architecture approach, as it offers a way to rapidly scale AI tools and capabilities for competitive advantage. The second key change is moving from batch to real-time data processing, because real processing enables a host of new business applications. In this case, a common data lake typically serves as the brain for such services, retaining all granular transaction and moments and contextual information. Another key factor or key change is moving from pre-integrated commercial solution to modular best-of-breed platforms. So a sort of composition of platforms. And this is mainly guided by the reason to scale application, where companies often need to push well beyond the boundaries of legacy data ecosystem from large solution vendors. Many are moving toward a highly modular data architecture that uses best of breed and frequently also open source component that can be replaced with new technologies as needed without affecting other parts of the data architecture. The fourth key change is moving from point to point to decoupled data access. which means exposing data via API, ensuring that direct access to the users to view and modify data, offering at the same time faster, up-to-date access to common data sets. This permits you to easily reuse the same data among teams, accelerating access and enabling seamless collaboration among analytics teams and business users, so AI can be developed more efficiently. The third shift is moving from enterprise data warehouses to domain-based architecture. So moving from central enterprise data lake toward domain-driven design that can be customized and fit for purpose to improve time to market of new data products and services. So they're mostly focused on the product owners and business domain specific needs. And the final key shifts is moving away from rigid data models to flexible, extensible data schema. Predefined data models are still good to serve specific business intelligence needs, but they are often built in highly normalized schemas with rigid database tables. The need here is to gain greater flexibility and powerful competitive edge when exploring data or supporting advanced analytics. So the companies are trying to evolve to schema-light approaches using denormalized data models with which have fewer physical tables, and data is organized to maximize performance. So to end up with some of the benefits and the impact, let me say the rewards that some of the companies are obtaining. There are many papers, you can find several, offering you some findings, saying what firms have obtained with advanced insights practices, outcompeted beginners or companies less analytically mature. Just to note, because I'm short of time, that the most analytically mature organizations are twice as likely to report strong customer engagement, and they do obtain 5% higher operating margins when they use data effectively. But I'm sure you can review this information on your own and download the papers referring to those results. So according to these results, companies with the greatest overall growth in revenue and earnings do receive a significant proportion of that boost from data and analytics. With that said, I'll pass you over to you, Joe, and let you continue the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Giovanni. So how do we overcome today's challenges with Domo? My name's Joe Mcavich, and I manage the partners here across EMEA at Domo. So first off, who are Domo? Well, we were founded in 2010 with our HQ based out of Utah in the US. We're also NASDAQ listed, and over the last 10 years, we've kind of really cracked on and had some fantastic successes across a whole different range of industries and personas, and we're now trusted by over 30% of the Fortune 500. Again, as I just said there, what's fantastic is that these data challenges don't just sit within an IT or specializing technology team as they were, that a lot of those challenges that have been trying to solve that is underpinned by technology. What's great is that we get to work across all industries and all kind of different personas and lines of businesses within the organizations that we're able to work with. As a bit of further background, our CEO and founder, Josh James, founded Omniture, for those of you that know of Omniture, which later became Adobe as part of a acquisition there. And a lot of that team, again, including Josh himself and the foundation team, they also joined when they started Domo. A lot of that team is still here with us to the present day. So there's a real strong cloud computing legacy and background there, helping organizations deal with data and the challenges that that brings, but also the opportunity. So if we look at COVID-19, it's an unexpected event that has absolutely shook us and requires an immediate response. And we have to adapt to that to sustain our business and still hopefully grow as part of that. So if we actually look at the global risk landscape from the start of the year, infectious diseases were actually not a risk that were likely or to have the highest impact. Yet clearly we've seen that that's come about and that's happened, and the impact that's had on all businesses and how they can operate day to day and month to month. So when it does hit, the impact is clearly massive for business. But there are also other events we have to adapt to as part of that. It could be acquisitions, it could be supply shutdowns and demand spikes based on what's going on. But we have to be ready to adapt to that. So if we look at a curve that obviously we're very familiar with everything going on right now, that there are different ways we can plan and adapt to what's going on. There is the first react and respond, where decisions have to be taken, where we just don't have time to look at things and spend months and months looking at data to make the decisions that we have to make. We have to do things right now. But then as we look at refocusing our business and planning for the future, how can we reduce the impact of what's going on and flatten that curve, as it were, and use data to really plan for the future and then implement and accelerate that future growth that we look to target as part of that. Data is pivotal to that, but we also need the right technology to underpin all of that to make sure we can get the data to all parts of the business and ensure that that impact is much lower to the business, but then that plan for the future is there beyond the decisions that are made at first events hitting. So how does Domo help flatten that curve and help businesses to respond to things ongoing, whether that's COVID-19 or the day-to-day business challenges or BI impact that businesses face? And at Domo, we talk BI impacts as business impacts. So how are we leveraging the data that all businesses have, leveraging the people that are on the ground, know what's going on and understand that data. And then as part of that, leveraging operations that are ongoing through the business. So with the Domo Business Cloud, we talk about things at cloud scale. It doesn't matter how many data sources you want to connect into, whether that's volumes of billions or trillions of rows of data, and then querying that data at speed and in microseconds, because if we have to wait such long periods of time for data, those business impacts are difficult to respond to, or the impacts of responding to that are far less great than we'd like them to be. And then what's important is that this is done at record time, where projects that are taking months to years of ever-changing teams and challenges and problems, that actually we all have challenges in our marketing, sales, finance teams, that, you know, we're talking POCs taking a few days and getting data sources in, you know, in a few hours and ready to get immediate insight into. And that's important because if you can't have BI leverage at cloud scale in record time, your ability to respond to some of these challenges are just impossible. So what is the Domo Business Cloud? It's about the ability to connect and transform your data by pulling data from any source, you know, whether that's one of Domo's pre-built connectors or building one of your own. It's about doing on-the-fly transformations, no analytics or bottlenecks. You're not waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for a specialized BI team to create something for you. And from a storage aspect, it's all in the cloud, it's centralized, it's distributed, it's federated, it's duplication free. So you don't have to worry about running that yourself. It's about then visualizing and analyzing that data, because visualization is important. If we can see what's going on with the data, we can see what's happening with the functions, the processes, the different areas of the business. And a live analysis with that one source of truth. And change can be made by anyone. Again, clear to that first point that you don't have to rely on a specialized team that creates bottlenecks. That, again, with COVID-19 going on right now, everyone needs to be able to respond yesterday. It's not tomorrow, it's not 3, 4, 5 weeks in the future. We have to make the decisions now and need the data to back it up. So the fact that anyone can do this, any authorized individual within the business, is absolutely key. And finally, we can build and extend with custom applications that seem seamlessly integrated with some of the existing technology, and you can securely extend that throughout the business and also to outside partners or customers, and you really can leverage that ecosystem. And we talk about going fast. It's about modernizing and mobilizing any business process to run, learn and serve on the fly. We make it easier to automate workflows and personalize data to the user and the department. It provides alerts automatically when action is needed. And you're able to do that wherever you are. It can be done from a phone. Live analytics are delivered throughout your business with cards, dashboards, and stories that instrument your business in real time. It's the rich array of capabilities that led Dresner to rank as #1 in the self-service business analytics report last year. And it's about going big. This is about giving all your teams high-value data within seconds. And that's orders of magnitude easier to us. So we're talking tens of trillions of rows of data, updated hundreds of millions of times, querying hundreds of millions of times with less than a second of response time. So that's true leverage from the entire team who can get that business impact. And it's about being bold. It's about thinking of ways that we can deliver new innovations in record time that advance the competitiveness and value. So if we go back to thinking about responding to a challenge such as COVID-19, it's not just being able to respond and adapt to it. It's about winning and creating more competitiveness and value while many other businesses will really struggle and fail to adapt, that actually you can come out of this even stronger than you were before. And just to take an example of one of our customers that has really used Domo to empower their business, and what was really important is that they were, as I've just said, empower the business to drive their own outcomes and being able to make their own decisions there and then. And as a key driver and metric for them, it reduced key expense metrics by 50% over 3 months. And then if we look at another example from ESBM, is at the speed of which they wanted to do things with Domo, and then the speed that we were actually able to build and deploy was unlike any other experience they had had. So to them, it was an absolute game changer. This increased customer satisfaction by up to 9%, and the customer self-service was up by 200%. So they actually empowered their customer self-service to massively grow. And that was a huge plus for them. And then if we look at a case study, as it were, that's happened during COVID-19, Harmons are a large grocery store and an outfit in the US. And how they responded with Domo to COVID-19 was in Utah, March 11th, the first Utah Jazz player tested positive. That created that first whirlwind, as it were, of what's going on with COVID-19, and hit hard across the state. But actually what they found is that those spikes of items that were selling that were not usual to them, but straight away they could, by using Domo, understand the 4,000 most important items to their customers and respond by changing their distribution, what they were ordering. They created a vendor dashboard within less than 24 hours to look at what was selling much faster and the impacts of COVID-19 as it unfolded as to what is selling, what's been thrown away, what are customers not buying anymore that they'd normally stopped for. And effectively, they were able to order from the distribution channels much quicker than some of the major national retailers because of how quickly they had access to data. And by having that data, they're able to see what was really going on rather than I think we might be selling this a bit more, or I think that's not going to sell right now given everything going on. And that ability to see that in real time, have a dashboard ready in less than 24 hours was an immediate business impact. If we look at how we also responded to COVID-19 from a government and public sector aspect, we went bold, and the state of Utah, again, close to our home and our HQ, within 72 hours of us talking to them, we went live, and we had a centralized cockpit where the governor of the state of Utah could see everything from testing to case rates to hospital capacity, the PPE equipment and stocks, how the supplies were going, how the economy was dealing locally, and how people were getting into the state. And there was a single view for all the state workers. They could get access to it wherever they were. They didn't have to be sat at a computer. They could monitor everything that they needed to. And this is a critical part of responding to something impacting with data. We also replicated this in Iowa and Nebraska as two of the states that saw the impact of being able to go live within 72 hours and control and flatten that curve using Domo. So what do we understand to make all of this possible? Well, there are four key aspects that we have to look at. Well, first, it's the people. It's the core team that is serving the business with data, but also the wider teams of that. But what's critical here is that you don't have to rely on a specialized technology team or data team to put in a request to get better insight into certain data. And then that creates a bottleneck that we keep talking about. The people understand their part of the business. They're the experts. That's why they work for you. By understanding that, we can look at then the operations, the process that they want to improve or impact, and have that data to back it up, and those core data sets that we need to bring together, and the additional data sets that are probably overlooked because the process of connecting that additional data sets in or getting data from difficult source systems to access, that it's a good enough sort of impact rather than all this data needs to be mission critical. And the amount of energy spent on making that data usable is just not feasible for many. So it's about understanding that we have to access all of that data to make a truly informed decision. And then how does that impact the full business, from the top business priorities right now and in the future, and then how they trickle down as to those key metrics and KPIs that, how do they then filter down into marketing and into finance and into the operational parts of the team. That's all going to be impacted from your people, operations, and data. And again, if we go back to how COVID-19 is changing businesses, because they have to adapt to new workforce management issues, they have to ensure that, the employees are safe, that they have to respond to safety of employees going back into the offices or visiting sites perhaps. And if an impact does occur again, and if new incidents and outbreaks occur, there are protocols in place that they can manage that, keeping their employees safe and being responsible as a business to their employees and workforce, and keeping data privacy as an absolute must, given that personal data is often in play right now, but ensuring that no one is impacted by that, the employees and any data you have is not compromised at all. And what are the 4 questions that every organization are trying to answer right now? Well, it's about rethinking your workplace strategy now and into the future. So the first question is, how do you know that you're ready to bring back people into the building, into the workplace, into the office? When will the time be right for your company? The chances are you've got data or you're working with people to understand that, but how do you truly know when you're ready? How will you stay open and safe so that if incidents do occur, that you're still able to adapt and understand who's been where and seen what people, that you can stop the impact of that being too great? And again, if an incident and infection occurs, what are your protocols for that? And finally, how are you giving employees confidence and giving them trust to return back to that workplace? Because if that trust is there, people are going to be more hesitant to return. And if they're made to return or will go back in, are they going to feel on edge and feel confident about being there? Because that will fundamentally impact their well-being and impact they have as an individual within the business. And it all has to be a simple but comprehensive approach. So look at the strategy of getting people back in, the technology and the continuous support of being able to integrate all of this. And it has to be delivered at cloud scale in record time. So again, talking about Domo is how can we really empower organizations to do things, whether that's the traditional business challenges or the ever-changing space of things going on with COVID-19, whether that's small use cases across the business or the overall strategy of how we're going to get people back into the office, or whether that's a hybrid approach that we know that some workers won't go back depending on where they are across the world. A lot of regions are different. I can talk here about the UK, how we've got now local lockdowns in counties such as Leicester, that they've actually locked down the cities, but the rest of the cities have started to open up. Businesses are starting to reopen. So you've got to be flexible and look at, well, actually for those workers perhaps in Leicester, as I've just said, then they're able to still work from home, but you've got the full visibility to that part of the workforce, but then have the flexibility to say, well, actually other parts of the businesses can reopen, but if there is any sort of minor outbreak that occurs, that's locked down straight away and the protocols are in place. So we've got to be able to do it fast. We've got to have that flexibility. It's got to be complete. It can't just be lots of little things pieced together that don't work. It has to be a true solution. It's got to be transparent. So all your employees have to have that full view to know that they're part of the process. It's compliant, privacy first, and aligned to the regulatory frameworks, and it's got to be future-proof. That we know this isn't just going to be something for 1, 2, 3 months that's going to be a bodge job, to use the term, whereas actually this is future-proof and the protocols are ready for any future incidents that may occur. And it's about doing this in an unmatched time to value sort of way. We're talking instant insights within 60 minutes, guided POCs with up to 14 days, often quicker, go live in 2 months, again, often quicker. And then we're talking ROI in less than 3 months. So with that, I've talked a lot about how Domo can respond to business and the challenges. I'm going to jump into a quick demo. So here we have Domo. First off to note, it's a web client, not a full fat client. So what you get with that is no lag of having such a client, as that's all passed on to the cloud, and then it ensures there's no latency for that end user. So if we look at in front of you, here you have an executive summary of marketing, for example, and all of these metrics and key data points are there for the end user to gain some insight. What's great and what you can see here is that it's not about just looking at a snapshot at a given point of time. You can start to interact with that data and see how things are updated on the page as I've drilled down into a certain aspect that might be interesting to me. And that's very important that you're still able to do that. If we think about many data sources and the world of BI, as it were, and looking at data, we know that to answer some of those key business questions, it's not about one data source, and that we need to look at more than one different data source to get a full picture of the truth. If we look here, and again, if we're looking at marketing, for example, we have to get data from Facebook, from Twitter, Instagram, Eloqua, SAP, Google. There's so many different sources we have to take into account. So getting data in coming from everywhere is absolutely critical. So what's great here is that, yes, we can quickly create cards to look at and view the data once it's ready and prepped. But how do we get access to that data? So why don't we take a look at that data? Well, here is a view of all the data that's available to an organization that's currently sat in Domo. Most of this is stored in Domo. We can see the data streaming in right now here at the bottom. But we can also access databases and cloud sources that sit outside of Domo. So for those certain data sources that are perhaps behind a firewall that you don't want to push that data into Domo, there's also that option to do that, as you can see some of these data sources up here. So how does that data look when we try to bring it in? Well, let's just click here at the top, and again, on the theme of marketing, let's search for some of the marketing data. And we can see here there are so many different sources of data that we can start plugging things into and drawing data from it. So if we look at Eloqua, for example, it's a very easy case of purely authenticating against usernames and passwords, plugging into that data, and then perhaps you want to assign someone a token. So again, you're not sharing the login aspects with some of the people in your business, but those that need access to that data, you can quickly give them to it. And once we've done that, we can then choose how frequently we want that data to be brought in and pulled into Domo. And then again, we get this full view of Domo here and all the data that's ready for us. And then if we then go into the data flows themselves, so now that the data is in and there's no opportunity to work with that data, there's potentially so much we can then change, look to create on the fly, perhaps change or look at some of the data sources that are flowing through to say, well, actually, a lot of the data is the same in a lot of different systems, but how can we potentially work with that? So, you know, we can then start to look at the lineage of the data and the history of how that data flow has been flowing through and when that data was last run and how many different versions of this have been used. And that's incredibly important to show what's happened with the data, so that you've got that full picture of where that's been. And then perhaps something might change, for example, where, you know, you're blending data from different sources and perhaps maybe the Twitter metrics are more specific to something else, and actually I want to change that. So it's very much a case of I can just drag and drop something in to say, well, actually, it's a different aspect of Twitter, and actually I'm looking for user profile metrics to be even more specific. So I can very quickly choose a data set that I want to work on. I can configure that to how that looks to me. If I'm okay with that, perhaps I want to change it to this Twitter metric and its user profile metrics. And very quickly I can change that. And once we run this again, things will change. The columns don't exist, and straight away I can quickly change what I want to work with. I can get rid of the errors or amend what that looks like, and then run that again. And if you think outside of marketing, it might be a finance system. Perhaps it's an expense tool that's changed and you've got all of this workflow in place to manage those data flows. Whereas actually very quickly on the fly, you can update that, save it, and then based on that running frequency, this is all set up and ready to go. So it's not the typical, you've got to put a request off for all of this to be rebuilt or start again. And that's incredibly important for those users. And then if we switch to a mobile view of Domo, we can see that we still have this rich view of exactly the same content that we saw, again, built into the native application. And if I want to drill down in some of that same data again, I'm still able to do that. And to get even to that real raw data is actually row by row, what does that data look like, and understand what's going on. And then quickly to jump out of that, you know, it might be that I want to look at specific cards around that's building some of those marketing dashboards and content, and understand perhaps what the cost to acquire and service $1 of revenue might look like. And really, again, get into that detail on the fly, wherever I might be, and start to look at what's going on to say, well, this costing seems incredibly high. I know someone in my team, such as JJ, one of the senior solutions consultants, as it were, you know, should understand what's going on and be able to help with that. So I can quickly tag him and say, what's the story here? Can you please advise? Again, this has all been done from my mobile phone, so I don't have to worry about being back at a desk or logging back into my laptop, as it were. You know, I can do this all on my phone. And what's really important here is that, you know, if you look at kind of the retail and finance aspect of the business, you know, particularly from a retail standpoint, if things are changing every 5, 10, 15 minutes, you know, you need to be able to respond straight away. So some of our clients, and just name one of the examples, is a large betting company across Europe, and what their CEO is able to do is at home during the sporting events that happen often at, you know, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, is able to monitor the spreads of betting, how the performance is happening. And again, all been able to do that from mobile phone or an iPad or tablet, for example. And having that flexibility to be able to do that's incredibly important for many of the clients that we work with. So that concludes the short demo. There's a lot more we can show you, and we'd love to work with you perhaps on a small POC or spinning up a free instance of Domo, that just to give you a flavor of what we can do and potentially help you with. But with that, I'm going to hand back over to Giovanni, that's going to open the floor for questions. We'll share my contact details at the end if you want to get in touch. But thank you again, and appreciate you taking the time to join us for this webinar this morning. Thank you very much.
So let's take some key takeaways. To succeed in the digital age, companies need to significantly raise their metabolic rate. In this day and age, all companies will need to find a direct path to the customer and will need real-time analytics. Yesterday, that architecture can't meet today's need for speed, flexibility, and innovation. The key to a successful upgrade to overcome today's data challenges is agility. Empowered businesses do get significant results, as we saw previously. Business intelligence impacts are business impacts. We call it BI leverage. That means helping you leverage the data asset throughout your business, making it easy for small teams to do the big work, and weaving those capabilities directly into operation of your business at cloud scale. The Domo Business Cloud overcomes today's data challenges and empowers your organization with data speed, data connection, data visualization, and data science capabilities. So let me pass over to Kelly for any incoming question, if there are.
Great, thanks Giovanni and Joe. I know we could discuss this for quite some time, so thanks for trying to fit it into such a short time slot. Even though we have gone a little bit over time, we hope that this session has given you some insight into Domo and how it can support your business. So let's try to cover a couple of questions before we go. the first question that came through was, there was a talk of augmented intelligence. Can you explain what do you mean by this? Giovanni, I think that was in your section, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So there's a wave where BI business intelligence capabilities and data science capabilities are merging together. So by augmented analytics, we mean such kind of disruption where the business intelligence is including machine learning capabilities, accelerating insights on a vast amounts of data. So this is what we mean by augmented analytics and intelligence.
Perfect, thank you. And I have another question come through. There's what's the next steps if I want to see a bit more of how Domo works? So Joe, I think that's straight for you.
Yeah, if I take that question, yeah. So there's probably three ways we can look at this. Is the first one to set up a session with you and your team to look at the business and data challenges you might have, and also the technology you currently work with, and see how we can potentially help there. There's the free instance and trial version of Domo we can get you spun up on. We can plug a couple of data points into that, build a few cards with you to start to get insight straight away. You know, again, we're talking 60 to 120 minutes. We're not talking weeks to months, which is great. And kind of the last point is if it's more about getting your employees back to work safely, there are lots of different things we can talk about there and show you. So again, would love to do a combination of all three or one or two of those points. And that's probably the best way to move forward. Thank you, Kelly.
Great, thanks, Joe. I think we'll skip straight before we run out of time. Let's skip straight to the closure. So if you do want to contact Giovanni or Joe, here's their contact details. So feel free to pop them an email or call. Obviously, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great day.